probably better for me to start off with what I do. So I do orthotics, and I specifically look at biomechanics, but I work in conjunction with podiatrists, and we look very much at how the skin works and treating problem feet. Now, parish walking problem feet are quite different to most other just problem feet. I would say, and I've seen some pretty horror stories on my own, pretty much horror stories on my own feet. So I think one of the big things when it comes to anything to do with the parish walk, be it blisters or just injuring yourself, I hear a lot of people coming in with shin splints. It's about knowing what the problem is as opposed to just having a solution to it all the time. Because if you understand your particular problem, then it can be a little bit easier. Actually, blisters, it's been mentioned before, everyone is different. Okay, the only person for whom that thing being normal is you. Okay, and it's imperative that when you're training, that you don't change too many things all at the one time, particularly with respect to blistering. So if you're finding that you're getting a blister in some place, don't just all of a sudden start taping up your entire foot and compeding everywhere. Try and change if you can, and your training regime should allow this, try and change one thing at a time, because sometimes changing that one thing can make all the difference. So let's say, for example, you're prone to suffering blisters in the middle of your feet. Okay, so most people will automatically start trying to bias onto the outside of their foot or onto the inside to try and avoid it. And in doing that, they start to get blisters because of those compensatory mechanisms elsewhere. So when you go out on your next walk, don't just stick a blister patch everywhere that you've had blisters before. Try and focus on the one that caused you the most problems to begin with.
Good to you.
I've never experienced hiking boots other than going over the hills where you need protection for your feet on the ankles in particular. I've always felt they're good for that. On the roads, you want a pair of shoes that feel like your best friend. So if you haven't got them now, you really need to get them straight away and wear them a lot. So that,
as we've said numerous times this evening, what's right for one is not necessarily right for somebody else. So I would say if you're comfortable in them and they work for you, then why change it? Have you ever had your gait analysed on a treadmill, for instance? That might be worth investigating, because you could identify your pronation. You may overpronate, for instance, so the trainers that you buy just off the shelf are totally the wrong for your walking style or running style.
Right shoe that suits them, which is why it's important that the preparation beforehand, that you've worn them, you've walked in them, you know they're not going to give you an issue. So if your hiking boots are a thing, you know, who's to say? There's no rule that says you can't wear hiking boots, but
I have to say, we all proper trainers. I wore a brown, thick walking shoe, and I loved them. I couldn't get them anymore, and that's why I went to a trainer. But I did go and get my feet done properly. And
I suggest you perhaps go down Douglas Promenade, walk up and down, which is a couple of times, and if that's 4 miles, see how that suits you, and just gradually do a little bit more. I would say it's very hard to sort of really, if you're only aiming to get to Peel,
don't say only.
then really build up your fitness generally. Do you do other sports or anything? Yeah, keep them going, keep your fitness level up. Gradually increase your walking. Don't do one that's going to wear you out. Really. I think Kevin's...
Rather than focusing on what miles you have to do, is how often you're walking. So even if you're doing 6 miles 2 or 3 times a week, you know, undoubtedly will help the fact that you're walking regularly. And I think that would be one of the key messages.
I think really you want to look at spending time on your feet. So instead of driving down the shop to get a pint of milk, you might decide to walk down. Get off your butt and do a little bit more, rather than just sitting in the car or sitting on the couch, as it were.
But at this point, Murray's sat here in the front row, who runs parishwalk.com website, and there's so much information and detail on there about past training regimes, timings, what you can set yourself, targets you can set yourself. You can also follow the blogs of walkers who are writing blogs about this year's training regime, and some of the walkers from the last 3 or 4 years who've done something similar, and maybe see what they've been doing. Some of them are take it to a really high level scientifically with heart monitors and GPS trackers. That's probably not for everybody, and probably not everybody needs that, but there are some great tips and bits and pieces on there. So the question was, for those who couldn't hear, what one thing would you take, it's a bit like Desert Island Discount, what one thing would you take to help you complete an advantage walk?
I would say sun cream and snow boots, because at the end of the day it is the Ironman over a 24-hour period, so clothing, you might start off nice and sunny, but by the time you get to Rush, it might be pouring down, and then it'll be sunny again at Peel, etc. Be cold at night time, so changes of clothing for hot weather, wet weather, and cold weather.
With that, I would bring Vaseline as well. Make sure you have Vaseline.
And why would you bring Vaseline?
No traffic.
If you want to be pen and paper, write down well ahead of time what you need.
Oh yeah, okay.
I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. One key element is if you feel thirsty, it's too late, you're dehydrated by that point. But it's not just drinking, if you're just drinking liquids, it will go straight through, so you need to supplement that with food as well, but not just water, and mix and match with maybe again, you would have to try this in training, nothing new on the day, but mix and match with isotonic drinks, or maybe Lucozade, something different, cup of tea, sugar in, water, and then something to eat, so it's just constantly nibbling, constantly sipping really, but if you're just drinking purely water, then it will just go straight through.
Probably little and often is better than drinking a whole bottle at one time. And of course, so much can depend on the day. You know, we've had events, 2008 springs to mind. I'm sure the walkers here who were there at the time remember it rained from start to finish, and the amount lost by perspiration in that event was probably less than some of the other years when we've had, you know, really hot sunshine. So it's a question of how you feel. But you're probably better off having too much and losing time by going to the loo, and having not enough and getting dehydrated, because once you get to that point, you know, your performance and your ability to continue would, I would say, would be seriously dented, yeah.
Alan, you mentioned a couple of times general fitness. Is cycling and walking compatible as a different use of muscles?
It depends on how much you do, obviously, but you do. It's advisable to do a reasonable amount of walking just to get used to the movement and the feel of it and everything like that. Other forms of training will help you, because general levels of fitness mean you perform better. It'd be hard if you did serious cycling to get off the bike and walk. So modest amounts of cycling, modest amounts of swimming, a little bit of running, a bit of gym work don't harm. They bring up your fitness levels, but you need to get out and do some practice walks.
Would the panel have any tips on what level of training to do in the week before the event, and also what to eat in the kind of 48 hours before the event?
Well, I don't train the week before, have a week off. And personally, I bet pasta, potatoes, just all cook, get your body ready. That's personally what I've done.
Yeah, very similar. Maybe go out on Tuesday, do 3 or 4 miles, just to keep ticking over really. But by that time, the trainer would have tapered it right down to virtually nil anyway. And the day before, a couple of days before, as morning, just eat pasta dishes, things like that, start carb up. But that said, don't go out of your way to, don't change your diet dramatically, because it could have an adverse effect. Essentially, just keep doing what you're doing, and then have a little bit extra pasta, for instance, on the Friday night. And you'd have to try these things in training.
Yeah.
Savoury snacks, yeah, there's always a nice change to, because you get to do the same thing hour after hour. So yeah, mix and match definitely, but again, try it all in training. Don't try anything new on the day.
An example, please, of what types of savoury snacks we can try?
Well, what's right for me might not be right for for anybody else. So it is important to find out not just what you like, but what your body requires, what your body needs. So whether it's salty things like peanuts, for instance, or the chicken, or ham sandwich, jam sandwich, soup, cup of tea with sugar in it. If you don't take sugar, your body would benefit from it. Throw some sugar in. So anything, dried fruit like apricots, for instance, dates, they're full of goodness, and they've got a high GI value, so you get the energy from those very quickly. Whereas bananas is slow, and there's a slower release type thing. So you just have to experiment a bit and find what works for you.
Again for coming. Finally, I would say, reminder, don't forget to enter. We don't want anybody missing the deadline for entries. Do have a look at the website, parishwalk.com, and we really look forward to seeing you all in June. So thanks again to the panel, and maybe we'd like to